Now let's begin. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast and forgotten coffee. Henry Logan stood at the sink, staring at the dirty dishes from 3 days ago, his hands gripping the counter edge until his knuckles turned white. 8 months. 8 months since Emily Douglas, his wife, his anchor, had been found at the bottom of Crimson Lake, her car submerged in 20 feet of murky water. The police called it an accident. Wet roads, sharp turn, no guardrail. Case closed. Henry hadn't believed it then. He still didn't. Daddy. He turned to find his son, Corey, standing in the doorway of their suburban home, backpack hanging off one shoulder, his sandy hair sticking up in the way Emily used to fix every morning. The boy was 7 now, growing taller, but his eyes still held that wounded look that had settled there the day they buried an empty casket. Hey, buddy. How was school? Corey walked in slowly, setting his backpack on the kitchen table with unusual care. Something was off. The kid normally bounded in like a retriever, dumping his bag wherever it landed. Today, his movements were measured, nervous. It was okay, Corey said, not meeting his father's eyes. We had art. That's good. Henry grabbed the coffee pot, pouring the sludge into the sink. Want a snack? Daddy. Corey's voice dropped to a whisper. Why did Mommy pick me up yesterday? The coffee pot slipped from Henry's hand, shattering in the porcelain sink. Glass exploded across the basin, brown liquid spattering the white tile backsplash. He didn't move to clean it. Couldn't. Every muscle in his body had locked. What did you say? Corey's lower lip trembled. His small hands fumbled with the zipper on his backpack. Yesterday, when you were in that long meeting, the school called Mommy and she came to get me. Corey. Henry's voice came out strangled. He crouched down, gripping his son's shoulders maybe too tightly. Sweetie, Mommy's gone. She's been gone. You know that. But it was her. Tears welled in those hazel eyes, Emily's eyes. She looked just like her. She sounded like her. She knew things. Henry's mind raced. Yesterday afternoon, he'd been in a client meeting at Morrison & Associates, the architecture firm where he'd been partner for 6 years. The meeting had run long, nearly 3 hours. He'd gotten a text from the school saying Corey was sick, that his emergency contact had picked him up. He'd assumed it was Lauren Britton, their neighbor who was listed as backup. Who brought you home? She did. She drove me here and said you'd be home soon. She made me promise not to tell you. Said it would be our secret. Corey's hand dove into his backpack, emerging with a Polaroid photograph. She gave me this. Henry took the photo with shaking hands. The image was crystal clear despite the vintage quality of Polaroid film. Corey sat on a park bench, smiling at the camera, and next to him, with her arm around his shoulders, was Emily. Not someone who resembled her. Not a lookalike. Emily Douglas, down to the small scar on her left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident, down to the way she tilted her head when she smiled, down to the silver locket she never took off, the one buried with her. His vision blurred. This wasn't possible. He'd identified her body. Dental records confirmed it. He'd watched them lower her casket into the ground beside her mother's grave. He flipped the Polaroid over. On the back, in handwriting that made his blood run cold, Emily's distinctive cursive with the elaborate loops on the capital letters were 7 words. She'll be with me soon, my love. The doorbell rang. Henry's head snapped toward the sound. Corey pressed closer to him, small body trembling. The bell rang again, followed by 3 sharp knocks. Deliberate. Patient. Stay here, Henry whispered, setting the photo on the table. He moved through the living room, past the packed boxes he still hadn't unpacked from their planned move, the one Emily had been so excited about before she died. His hand reached for the baseball bat he kept by the door, a habit from his years growing up in South Detroit, where you learned to be ready. He checked the peephole. A woman stood on his porch, her back to the door, face obscured. She wore a navy blue dress, the kind Emily favored for work at the museum. Same height, same build, same auburn hair that caught the late afternoon sun. Henry's heart hammered against his ribs. He flipped the deadbolt, turned the handle, and pulled the door open. The woman turned around. It wasn't Emily. Close, remarkably close, but the face was wrong. Harder. The eyes were green instead of hazel, the cheekbones more pronounced. She smiled, and it didn't reach those cold eyes. Hello, Henry. I'm Donna, or... She extended her hand. Emily's sister. Henry didn't take it. Emily didn't have a sister. Half-sister, Donna corrected, lowering her hand without offense. Same mother, different fathers. Emily never knew about me. Our mother kept us separated after the divorce. I only learned about Emily 5 years ago when our mother died. She glanced past him into the house. May I come in? We have a lot to discuss. No. Henry blocked the doorway. You need to leave. Now. I understand you're upset. The photo was meant to get your attention. You approached my son. Henry's voice dropped to something dangerous. You impersonated my dead wife and picked him up from school. That's kidnapping. Is it? Donna's smile widened. I'm his aunt. Blood relative. The school called Emily's emergency number. The one that's still active on Corey's file. I simply answered. Told them I was his mother. They didn't question it. She tilted her head, studying him. You really should update those forms, Henry. It's been 8 months. Every instinct screamed at him to slam the door, call the police, put as much distance between this woman and his son as possible. But something held him back. The photo, the handwriting, the way she stood, the subtle mannerisms that echoed Emily so perfectly they couldn't be coincidence. What do you want? To talk about Emily's death. Donna's expression shifted, something calculated behind it. Because we both know it wasn't an accident. Before Henry could respond, she pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and held it up. Security footage played, grainy but clear enough. Emily's Honda sedan on Crimson Lake Road, approaching the curve where she supposedly lost control. But in the video, another vehicle appeared behind her, a dark SUV, closing the distance fast. The footage cut off. I've been investigating for months, Donna said. Emily called me 2 weeks before she died. First time we'd spoken in years. She was terrified, Henry. Said someone was following her. Said if anything happened to her, I should find you, protect Corey. She pocketed the phone. So that's what I'm doing. Henry's mind spun. Emily, terrified? She'd never mentioned being followed, never acted scared. Then again, in those final weeks, she had been distant. Late nights at the museum. Phone calls she'd taken another room. He'd attributed it to stress from her new position as curator. Why the photo, he demanded. Why scare my son like that? Because you weren't listening. I've tried calling, emailing. You blocked every attempt. Donna's jaw tightened. I needed to prove I am who I say I am. That photo, look at the locket Emily's wearing. Open it. She's wearing the one we buried her with. No, you buried her with a replacement. Look closer at the photo, Henry. The real locket has an inscription inside. For Ed, my brightest star. M.O., our mother, Margaret, or Emily kept it hidden from you because she knew you'd ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. Henry stared at this woman who claimed to be family, who had footage he'd never seen, who knew details that should have been buried with his wife. Every rational part of his brain screamed this was manipulation, a con, someone taking advantage of his grief. But the photo, the handwriting, the locket. You have 5 minutes, he said, stepping aside. Donna walked into his home, her eyes scanning the space with an intimacy that unsettled him. She paused at the mantel where Emily's photo sat, their wedding day, both of them young and stupid in love. She looked happy with you, Donna said softly. That's rare in our family. Corey appeared in the kitchen doorway, and Donna's expression transformed. The calculated edge melted into something genuine, wonder, perhaps even grief. My God, he has her eyes. She took a step toward Corey, then stopped, seeming to remember herself. Hello, Corey. I'm your Aunt Donna. You're not my mom, Corey said, small voice defiant. No, sweetheart. I'm not. I'm sorry I scared you. Donna knelt down, keeping distance between them. Your mom was my sister, and I loved her very much. I came here to help your dad find out what really happened to her. Henry pulled Corey close. Go to your room, buddy. Take your tablet. But Dad. Now, Corey. The boy left reluctantly, casting backward glances at Donna as he climbed the stairs. Henry waited until he heard the bedroom door close before turning back to his unexpected guest. Start talking. All of it. Donna settled onto the couch, uninvited but composed. Our mother had Emily when she was 19, gave her up for adoption to the Douglas family. She had me 4 years later with a different man, kept me. It destroyed her, the guilt. She tried to reconnect with Emily when we were teenagers, but the Douglas family blocked it. Restraining order. Said she was unfit. Emily never mentioned any of this. Emily never knew. The Douglases died in a car accident when she was 22. She went through their papers, found adoption records, hired a private investigator to find our mother. By then, Margaret was dying. Liver failure. Emily spent her last 6 months with her, and that's when I met my sister. Donna's voice cracked slightly. We weren't close. Too much time had passed, too much damage. But she was my blood, Henry. The only family I had left. This doesn't explain why someone would kill her. 3 weeks before she died, Emily received a letter. Anonymous. It said, "You should never have looked into the past. Some doors should stay closed." She was researching something at the museum, a private collection donated by the Merritt family. Ricardo Merritt, specifically. Henry's blood chilled. Ricardo Merritt owned half the commercial real estate in the city, including the building where Morrison and Associates leased office space. Powerful, connected, and according to rumors, not a man you crossed. What was in the collection? Art mostly. Paintings, sculptures, pottery. Standard wealthy family donations for tax write-offs. But Emily found something, a logbook from the 1940s detailing art acquisitions. Pieces that matched descriptions of works stolen from Jewish families during the Holocaust. The Merritts were art dealers back then, and Emily believed they'd trafficked in stolen goods, built their fortune on it. Jesus Christ. Henry ran his hands through his hair. She never told me. She was trying to verify it first. Didn't want to accuse without proof. But someone found out she was looking. And 2 weeks later, she's dead. The implications crashed over Henry like a wave. If Donna was telling the truth, and that was still a massive if, then Emily hadn't died in an accident. She'd been murdered. Murdered for discovering a family secret worth killing to protect. You're saying Ricardo Merritt killed my wife. I'm saying someone did. And the Merritts have the means, motive, and connections to make it look like an accident. Donna leaned forward. I've been gathering evidence, but I can't do this alone. I need you, Henry. I need someone who knew Emily, who has access to her things, her research. Help me prove what happened. Help me make them pay. Henry looked at this stranger who wore his dead wife's face, who spun a story that sounded insane, but somehow fit pieces of a puzzle he hadn't known existed. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, but neither was ignorance. If you're lying to me, he said slowly, if this is some kind of game. It's not. Donna stood, meeting his eyes. I swear on Emily's grave, every word is true. And if you help me, we can give her justice. Outside, a car engine started. Through the window, Henry caught a glimpse of a dark SUV pulling away from the curb 2 houses down. Same make and model as the one in Donna's footage. They were being watched. Henry didn't sleep that night. He sat at Emily's old desk in their home office, surrounded by boxes of her belongings he'd packed, but couldn't bring himself to donate. Donna had left an hour ago with a promise to return in the morning with more evidence. But first she needed to check something. He'd watched her drive away in a modest Toyota, scanning the street for the SUV. It was gone. Now, at 2 a.m., he carefully opened a box labeled Museum, Personal. Emily's work files, notes, research materials. He'd packed these months ago without looking through them, unable to face the remnants of the life she'd been building. The first folder contained exhibition plans for a show on Renaissance art. The second, acquisition requests for various pieces. The third, he paused. A manila envelope, unmarked, tucked between 2 binders. He opened it. Photocopies spilled across the desk. Pages from an old ledger, handwritten in German. Emily had made translations in the margins. Acquired from M. Rothstein Estate, September 1943. Vermeer painting, small. Purchased via intermediary from Goldstein Collection, January 1944. Rembrandt sketch. Dozens of entries, all following the same pattern. Acquisitions from Jewish-sounding names during the exact years of the Holocaust. At the bottom of the pile, a sticky note in Emily's handwriting. Merritt Collection donor records don't match acquisition dates. 3 paintings currently on display were acquired 1943 to 1944, but donor forms claim 1938 purchase from private European seller. Impossible. Need to verify provenance. Henry's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, then thought of the SUV, of Donna's warning. Hello, Mr. Logan. The voice was male, refined, with an accent he couldn't place. I hope I didn't wake you. Who is this? Someone who knows you've been asking questions about Emily Douglas. Questions that aren't wise. Henry's grip tightened on the phone. Answer my question. I represent interests that would prefer the past remain buried. Your wife didn't understand that. She paid the price for her curiosity. I'd hate to see the same happen to your son. A pause. He's sleeping soundly, by the way. Second floor, blue room, dinosaur nightlight. Henry's heart stopped. He sprinted up the stairs, taking them 3 at a time, the phone still pressed to his ear. Corey's door. He'd locked it from the inside at the boy's request, a new fear since Emily died. He pounded on it. Corey, answer me. The lock clicked. The door opened. Corey stood there, confused and frightened, clutching his stuffed elephant. Daddy. Henry pulled him into a crushing hug, phone forgotten. Behind him, a voice continued speaking from the dropped device. I hope we understand each other now, Mr. Logan. Stop looking. Stop asking. Forget Emily's research. Forget her sister. Forget everything. Or next time, I won't call first. The line went dead. Henry held his son, mind racing. They knew about Donna. They'd been in his house, or watching it closely enough to know Corey's room layout. These weren't empty threats. These were people with resources, people who'd already killed once. But as fear coursed through him, something else emerged. Something harder, colder. They'd made a mistake threatening his son. They thought fear would make him stop. They didn't know Henry Logan. Growing up in Detroit, he'd learned a fundamental truth. Bullies only understand one language. You don't back down. You don't negotiate. You find their weakness and you press until they break. He'd built a successful architecture firm on that principle. Never accepting the word no, never letting anyone push him around, always finding an angle. If Emily had been murdered, if the Merritts or someone in their orbit had killed her, they'd made their biggest mistake tonight. Because now Henry wasn't just curious. Now he was coming for them. Pack a bag, he told Corey quietly. We're going to stay with Uncle Darren for a few days. Darren Pineda, his best friend since college, was a criminal defense attorney with a paranoid streak and a townhouse with a security system that could rival Fort Knox. If anywhere was safe, it was there. As Corey scrambled to pack, Henry made 2 calls. First to Darren, who answered groggily but immediately agreed when Henry used their code phrase. Remember Detroit. It meant serious trouble, the kind where you didn't ask questions, you just helped. The second call was to Donna Orr. She answered on the first ring, voice alert. What happened? They threatened Corey. They've been watching the house. Henry kept his voice level, controlled. You said you needed my help. You have it. But we do this my way. And when we take these bastards down, they don't get to walk away. We make them pay for everything. A pause, then, what do you need? Everything you have. Every piece of evidence. Every contact. Every lead. Meet me tomorrow at Darren Pineda's office, 701 Riverside Drive. 10 a.m. sharp. And Donna? He looked at the photocopies spread across Emily's desk. Bring proof you are who you say you are. Real proof. Because if you're playing me, if this is some elaborate con, I will destroy you. Do we understand each other? Perfectly, Donna said. See you at 10, Henry. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry about Corey. I never meant for him to be in danger. He's in danger because of Emily's research. Your sister's research. So either we finish what she started, or we spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Henry gathered the photocopies, stuffing them into a folder. No more half measures. No more playing it safe. We're going to war. He ended the call and looked up to find Corey standing in the doorway, overnight bag in hand, eyes wide with an understanding beyond his years. Are we in trouble, Daddy? Henry crouched down, taking his son's face in his hands. No, buddy. The bad people are in trouble, and Daddy's going to make sure they know it. Darren Pineda's office occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse building overlooking the river. Henry arrived at 9:45 a.m. with Corey in tow, having spent the night in Darren's guest room while his friend made a series of phone calls to contacts Henry didn't want to know about. Darren had connections in places most attorneys wouldn't admit. Defense work meant dealing with criminals, and the smart ones knew when to call in favors. He's asleep in my office, Darren said, meeting Henry in the hallway. He was a short, compact man with the wiry build of someone who'd boxed in college and never stopped. His tie was loose, eyes bloodshot. I had my guys sweep your house this morning. Found 3 surveillance devices. 2 cameras, 1 audio bug. Professional grade. Where? Living room smoke detector, kitchen light fixture, and the audio device in your bedroom closet. Darren handed Henry a small plastic bag containing the destroyed electronics. They've been watching for at least a week, maybe longer. My guy disabled them, but left them in place. Didn't want to tip anyone off that we found them. Henry's jaw clenched. Someone had been in his bedroom, watching him grieve, watching him parent, invading every private moment. The violation burned worse than the threat. Can you trace them? Already on it. The text suggests either private security firm or someone with military connections. Not your standard PI equipment. Darren poured coffee from a pot that smelled like it had been brewing since yesterday. You want to tell me what the hell is going on? You show up at 3 a.m. with your kid, muttering about threats and Emily's death not being an accident. I've known you 15 years, Henry. I've never seen you like this. Henry was about to answer when the elevator chimed. Donna stepped out, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing a sharp black suit that suggested she meant business. She spotted them and approached, heels clicking on the hardwood. Mr. Pineda, I presume. She extended her hand. Donna, thank you for accommodating us. Darren looked at Henry, then at Donna, his expression cycling through confusion, recognition, and shock. Holy shit. You look just like Emily's half-sister, Henry said. Allegedly. Not allegedly. Donna set her briefcase on the conference table and popped it open. I brought documentation. Birth certificate showing Margaret as my mother. Hospital records from Emily's birth showing the same. Adoption papers for Emily to the Douglas family. Letters from Margaret to Emily during her final months. And this, she pulled out a DNA test report. Maternity test comparing my DNA to samples from Emily's hairbrush that Henry never threw away. 99.97% probability we share a mother. Henry took the report, scanning the official letterhead from GeneTech Laboratories. The samples were dated 3 weeks ago, which meant Donna had gotten into his house or somehow acquired Emily's DNA before ever making contact. How did you get her hairbrush? I visited your house while you were at work 2 months ago. Knocked on the door, told your neighbor Lauren Britton I was Emily's cousin from out of state, that I wanted something to remember her by. She let me in, watched me take the brush from the bathroom. Very sweet woman. Too trusting. Donna met his glare without flinching. I needed proof before I approached you. Needed to know for certain Emily was my sister. You broke into my house. I walked into your house with permission from someone with a key. Legally distinct. She turned to Darren. You're a lawyer. You know I'm right. Darren's lips twitched despite himself. Technically, yes. Ethically questionable, but not illegal. Everything about this situation is ethically questionable, Donna said. Which is why we need to be smart. Sit down. Both of you. I'll show you what I have. For the next hour, Donna laid out her case. Security footage from Crimson Lake Road showing the SUV behind Emily's car. Phone records proving Emily called Donna 2 weeks before her death. A 15-minute conversation. Emails from Emily to an art authentication expert asking about verifying provenance on pieces from the 1940s. Research notes matching what Henry had found in Emily's office. And then the bombshell. Emily's autopsy report. Donna slid the document across the table. Official cause of death, drowning consistent with vehicle submersion accident. But look at page 3, the toxicology screen. Henry scanned the medical jargon, not understanding until Darren pointed at a highlighted section. Gamma-hydroxybutyric acid, Darren read. GHB. They found traces in her system. The date rape drug, Donna said flatly. In concentrations suggesting she was dosed within an hour of her death. But look at the notation. The medical examiner flagged it as possible post-mortem contamination from water table. It was noted but dismissed. That's insane, Darren said. GHB doesn't just appear in lake water. It does if someone needs to explain away an inconvenient finding. The official report concluded Emily lost control of her vehicle due to wet roads. The GHB was listed as an unexplained anomaly, but not investigated further. Donna's expression hardened. I pulled the medical examiner's records. Dr. Bernard Schwartz. He retired 4 months after Emily's death, took a position at a private clinic in Switzerland. Very sudden departure for someone in his 50s. Very generous severance package. You're saying he was paid off, Henry said. I'm saying his daughter Christina Schwartz had her student loans cleared 2 weeks after Emily's autopsy. All $200,000 of them. Paid in full by an anonymous donor. Donna pulled up a financial document on her phone. I have a friend in banking. He traced it to a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. And guess who sits on the board of that shell company's parent corporation? Ricardo Merritt, Henry finished. His son, actually. Chad McCall Merritt, Ricardo's only child from his first marriage. He runs the Merritt Foundation, which handles all their charitable work, including donations to the museum where Emily worked. The pieces clicked together in Henry's mind with horrible clarity. Emily discovered the Holocaust connection in the donated art. Someone in the Merritt family found out. They couldn't risk exposure, so they eliminated the threat. Drugged her, ran her off the road, made it look like an accident, paid off the medical examiner to overlook the GHB. This is enough for the police, Darren said, but his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Is it? Donna challenged. Everything I have is circumstantial. The security footage doesn't show a license plate. The GHB was officially ruled contamination. The medical examiner is in Switzerland and won't talk. The financial trail goes through so many shells and intermediaries that proving the Merritts paid him off would take years and subpoena power I don't have. She looked at Henry. The police aren't going to help us. The Merritts own half this city. They donate to political campaigns, sit on charity boards, host fundraisers. They're untouchable through legal channels. Then we use illegal ones, Henry said quietly. Darren's head snapped up. Henry, they murdered my wife. They threatened my son. They bugged my house. Henry's voice was steel. I'm not waiting for justice to maybe happen through courts they probably own. I'm going to make them confess. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Darren asked. Henry stood, moving to the window overlooking the river. His architectural mind was already working, designing not a building, but a trap. A structure built from their arrogance, their certainty that they were above consequences. The Merritts trafficked in stolen art from Holocaust victims. That secret is worth killing to protect. But what if it wasn't a secret anymore? What if someone was about to expose them? Not to the police, but to the world, to the families of the victims, to the media, to everyone. He turned back. They killed Emily to stop that exposure. If they think someone else has her research and is about to go public, what will they do? They'll try to kill that person too, Donna said, understanding dawning. And we catch them in the act. We need bait, Henry said. Someone they can't ignore. Someone credible with a platform. Darren was shaking his head. This is insane. You're talking about making yourself a target. Not me. I'm going to make them think I'm willing to sell Emily's research. That I found it, realized what it was worth, and I'm looking for the highest bidder. Henry's smile was cold. What's more believable to people like the Merritts? A grieving husband seeking justice? Or a struggling architect looking to cash in on his dead wife's discovery? They'll try to buy you off first, Donna said. Probably. And when I refuse to take their money, when I make it clear I'm going to someone who'll pay more, someone like the Holocaust Museum or the New York Times, that's when they'll panic. That's when they'll make mistakes. And then what? Darren demanded. They come at you like they came at Emily, and you're dead. Brilliant plan. No, because unlike Emily, I'll be ready. I'll be wearing a wire. I'll have witnesses. I'll have everything documented. Henry looked at Donna. You said you wanted revenge. You said you wanted them to pay. This is how we do it. We make them come to us, make them confess, and we record every word. Donna stood, circling the table to face him. It's dangerous. If anything goes wrong, then I die knowing I tried. But sitting here, hiding, waiting for them to forget about us, that's not living. That's just a slower kind of death. Henry met her eyes. Are you in or not? She studied him for a long moment, and Henry saw something shift in her expression. Recognition, maybe, or respect. I'm in. But we do this smart. No cowboy heroics. We plan every step, every contingency. Agreed. Henry turned to Darren. I need you to find someone who can wire me properly. Police-grade equipment. Hidden, tamper-proof. And I need it by tomorrow. Jesus Christ. Darren rubbed his face. You know I could be disbarred for helping with this. You won't be. Because we're going to do this perfectly, and the only people going down are the ones who deserve it. Henry clasped his friend's shoulder. I need you, Darren. I can't do this without you. Darren looked at him, at Donna, at the evidence spread across his conference table. Finally, he sighed. I know a guy. Former FBI. He does private security now. Owes me from a case I worked 3 years ago. He pulled out his phone. But if you get killed, I'm going to be really pissed. Fair enough. As Darren made his call, Donna pulled Henry aside. There's something else you should know. The reason I really came here, the reason I've been so aggressive about this. You said Emily was your sister. That you wanted justice. That's true. But it's not the whole truth. Her voice dropped. Our mother, Margaret, she was Austrian. Her family died in the camps. Dachau. She was 8 years old when the Nazis took her parents, her brother, her grandmother. She survived because a neighbor hid her in a basement for 2 years. After the war, she came to America with nothing. Henry's chest tightened. The Merritt family trafficked art stolen from families like yours. Like mine. Like Emily's. Like Corey's. Donna's eyes glistened. When Emily told me what she'd found, she said she had to expose it. Not for fame or career advancement. Because our grandmother died in Dachau, and the Merritts built their fortune on the suffering of people like her. She said it was personal. And now it's personal for you. Now it's personal for all of us. Donna's expression hardened. So yes, Henry, I'm in. Whatever it takes. Because my sister died trying to bring these monsters to justice. And I'll be damned if I let her death mean nothing. Henry nodded slowly. Emily had never told him about her mother's heritage, about the Holocaust connection. She'd kept so much hidden, not out of mistrust, he realized, but out of love. She hadn't wanted to burden him with her pain, with her family's history. That ended now. Then let's make them pay, he said. For Emily. For your mother. For everyone they've hurt. Darren returned, pocketing his phone. My guy can meet tonight. 7 p.m. at his office. He'll wire you up, teach you how to use it, and set up backup recording. But Henry, you need to understand. Once you start this, there's no going back. The Merritts will know you're coming for them. Good, Henry said. I want them to know. I want them to be afraid. Because for 8 months, I've been the one who was afraid. Afraid to look too closely at Emily's death. Afraid to ask questions. Afraid to face the truth. He looked at his son through the office window, asleep on Darren's couch, small and vulnerable. No more fear. Now they get to be afraid. Then we need to set the trap, Donna said. Make first contact. Let them know you have Emily's research. I'll call the museum, Henry said. Ask to speak to Chad McCall Merritt about a donation from Emily's estate. See if he takes the bait. He will, Donna predicted. And when he does, you tell him you found something interesting. Something valuable. Something his family would very much like kept private. Henry pulled out his phone, already composing the message in his head. The architecture of revenge was taking shape, and he was building it to last. Outside, dark clouds gathered over the river, promising storms. But Henry welcomed them. Storms could cover a lot of sins. And he had sins to commit. The wire was smaller than Henry expected. A device no bigger than a button, magnetically attached beneath his shirt collar, with a backup recorder in his watch and a third in his belt buckle. Paranoid? Maybe. But Darren's contact, a grizzled ex-FBI agent named Mickey Waller who'd seen enough betrayals to trust redundancy, insisted on multiple fail-safes. Never rely on one system, Mickey had said while fitting the equipment. Batteries die, signals get jammed, evidence gets lost. You want this to stick, you record everything 3 ways. Now, standing outside the Merritt Foundation offices in downtown Clayton, Henry checked his reflection in the building's glass facade. He looked like what he was, a man pushed too far, barely holding it together. Good. Let them think he was desperate. The call to the museum had worked exactly as planned. He'd asked for Chad McCall Merritt, mentioned Emily's estate, hinted at sensitive materials that needed proper handling. Within an hour, Chad's assistant had called back with an appointment time. 4 p.m. today. Private office, top floor. Too easy. Too fast. Which meant they were worried. You ready? Donna's voice crackled in the wireless earpiece disguised as a hearing aid, another of Mickey's toys. She was parked 2 blocks away in a van with recording equipment, listening to everything. Darren was with her, there for moral support and legal counsel if this went sideways. As I'll ever be, Henry murmured, pushing through the revolving doors. The Merritt Foundation occupied floors 15 through 20 of the Morrison Tower. Irony not lost on Henry since his firm leased space in the same building. He'd been in this lobby 100 times for client meetings, never imagining he'd return as an instrument of vengeance. Security waved him through after checking his ID. The elevator ride to the 20th floor felt eternal, his heart hammering against his ribs. The wire was invisible, undetectable, but paranoia whispered that everyone could see it, that this was already over before it began. The doors opened to reveal a reception area that screamed old money. Dark wood paneling, original impressionist paintings, possibly stolen. Henry now thought bitterly, and furniture that cost more than most people's cars. Mr. Logan? A young woman in a designer suit approached, professional smile fixed in place. Mr. Merritt is expecting you. This way, please. She led him down a hallway lined with photos of the Merritt family's charitable works. Ricardo Merritt shaking hands with mayors and senators. Groundbreaking ceremonies for hospitals and schools. A legacy built on blood money, Henry thought. Chad McCall Merritt's office took up a corner of the building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The man himself stood with his back to the door, hands clasped behind him, staring out at the skyline. Mid-40s, athletic build, expensive suit. When he turned, Henry recognized him from society page photos. Handsome in that generic wealthy way, with cold blue eyes that assessed and calculated. Mr. Logan, thank you for coming. Chad's handshake was firm, his smile never reaching those eyes. Please sit. Can I offer you anything? Water? Coffee? I'm fine. Of course. I was so sorry to hear about Emily. Tragic loss. She did wonderful work at the museum. Chad settled into his leather chair, perfectly at ease. Your call mentioned materials from her estate? Henry pulled the folder from his bag, photocopies of the documents he'd found, carefully selected to show enough to be threatening without revealing everything. He slid them across the desk. I found these while going through Emily's office. Research on art in your family's collection. Documentation suggesting provenance issues with several pieces acquired in the 1940s. Chad's expression never changed as he scanned the pages, but Henry caught the slight tightening of his jaw, the way his fingers pressed too hard against the paper. Tells. The man was rattled. Interesting. Chad set the folder aside. But I'm not sure I understand why you're bringing this to me. Because Emily died investigating these pieces. And because I know what they mean. Do you? Chad leaned back, steepling his fingers. Mr. Logan, you're an architect, not an art historian. These documents are complex, require context. They prove your family trafficked in stolen art from Holocaust victims. Built your fortune on it. And my wife died because she was going to expose you. Henry kept his voice level, controlled. That's the context. Silence stretched between them. Outside, the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the office. Chad studied Henry with an expression that suggested he was recalculating, adjusting his approach. That's a serious accusation, Chad said finally. Based on what? Photocopies of old ledgers that could mean anything. Based on the fact that Emily called your office 3 times in the 2 weeks before she died. Based on phone records showing conversations with your assistant. Based on... Henry pulled out another document, one Donna had provided. This email from your family's legal team to Emily, warning her that pursuing unfounded allegations against the Merritt Foundation could result in legal action. Chad's mask slipped. Just for a second, but Henry saw it. Raw fury beneath the polished exterior. You're out of your depth here, Mr. Logan. My family has lawyers who... I'm sure they do. But lawyers can't stop me from taking this to the New York Times. Or the Washington Post. Or the Holocaust Museum. I've already made contact with a reporter at the Times who specializes in recovered art. She's very interested. A lie, but a convincing one. What do you want? Chad's voice turned flat. Dangerous. I want to know what happened to Emily. The truth. All of it. Henry leaned forward. And I want compensation for my son. Emily died because of your family's secrets. Corey deserves to know why his mother is gone. He deserves to have his future secured. You want money. I want justice. But I'm realistic enough to know justice doesn't exist for people like you. So yes, I'll settle for money. Enough that my son never has to worry. Enough that I can sleep at night knowing her death wasn't meaningless. Chad stood, moving to the window. For a long moment, he said nothing. Henry's heart raced. This was the moment. Chad would either take the bait or call his bluff. How much? $10 million. Paid into a trust for Corey. And a written confession explaining Emily's death was an accident that your family regrets. That's extortion. That's closure. Henry stood as well. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I contact the Times and release everything I have. Emily's research, the phone records, the threatening emails, all of it. Your family's reputation will be destroyed. You think the Times will publish this? Based on what you have. Chad turned, and his smile was genuinely amused. Mr. Logan, we've been handling PR crises for generations. We have contacts at every major publication. This story dies before it's printed. Then you have nothing to worry about. Henry gathered his folder. 48 hours, Mr. Merritt. Decide if your family secrets are worth $10 million. He was almost to the door when Chad spoke again. Your wife was a problem, Mr. Logan. She didn't understand how the world works. She thought moral righteousness mattered more than power. His voice was conversational, almost friendly. I hope you're smarter than she was. Henry stopped, every muscle tensing. Is that a threat? It's advice. From someone who knows how this ends. Chad returned to his desk, picking up the phone. Emily made her choice. She paid for it. You should think carefully about the choice you're making. I already have. Henry walked out, forcing himself to move slowly, naturally, even though every instinct screamed to run. In the elevator, alone, he exhaled shakily. Did you get that? Every word. Donna's voice confirmed in his ear. He all but admitted it. Not good enough. We need more. Henry exited the building, heading toward where Donna had parked. He's too careful. Didn't actually confess to anything specific. He will. You rattled him. Now we wait for him to make a mistake. But Henry wasn't planning to wait. He had 48 hours before his supposed deadline, and he intended to use every second. Because Chad McCall Merritt had just made a critical error. He'd underestimated a grieving father, and that was going to cost him everything. 24 hours later, Henry received a text from an unknown number. Tomorrow night, 11 p.m., Old Morrison Warehouse on the docks. Come alone. We'll discuss your proposal. It's a trap, Darren said, pacing Mickey Waller's office where they'd gathered to review the recording from Chad's office. They're going to kill you. Probably, Henry agreed. Which is why we're going to be ready. Mickey spread a blueprint of the Morrison Warehouse across his desk, a derelict building scheduled for demolition, isolated on the waterfront with multiple exits. Perfect for an ambush. They'll have people positioned here, here, and here. Mickey marked positions with a red pen. At least 4, maybe 6 hostiles. Armed. You walk in there, you might not walk out. Then we bring backup, Donna said. Police. SWAT. Record the meeting and have them standing by. With what evidence? Darren countered. The recording from Chad's office is suggestive, but not proof of murder. Any halfway decent lawyer, and the Merritts have the best, will argue Henry was trying to extort them and Chad's comments were just him refusing to pay. So what do we do? Donna demanded. Henry stared at the blueprint, his mind racing through scenarios, possibilities, angles of attack. He designed buildings for 15 years, understanding how spaces shaped behavior, how architecture could funnel people toward specific outcomes. We turned their trap into ours, he said slowly. They're expecting me alone, desperate, easy to handle. Instead, we give them what they think they want, until it's too late. He outlined his plan. Mickey would plant cameras throughout the warehouse beforehand, hidden in structural elements. Donna would be in a vehicle outside with police scanner and backup recording equipment. Darren would be at a law office nearby, ready to call police if things went wrong. And Henry would walk in wearing every piece of recording equipment Mickey owned, backed by a surprise that the Merritts wouldn't see coming. This is insane, Darren repeated, but he was already pulling out his phone to make arrangements. It's war, Henry corrected. And in war, you don't fight fair. You fight to win. The next night, Henry stood outside the Morrison Warehouse at 10:45 p.m., rain falling in sheets from a gunmetal sky. The building loomed before him, windows shattered, walls covered in graffiti. This close to the water, the smell of decay and rust was overwhelming. His phone buzzed. Donna, cameras are live. I have visual on 3 SUVs parked behind the building. At least 6 heat signatures inside. You sure about this? Henry typed back, no, but I'm doing it anyway. He pushed through the warehouse door. The interior was vast, empty except for old shipping containers and debris. Emergency lights cast everything in sickly yellow, creating deep shadows. His footsteps echoed as he walked toward the center of the space where a single chair sat under a hanging work light, staging, designed to intimidate. Mr. Logan. Chad Merritt emerged from the shadows, flanked by 2 men in tactical gear. Not security guards, private military contractors, ex-soldiers with dead eyes. You came. You invited me. I did. But I'm disappointed you didn't follow instructions. Chad gestured, and 4 more men appeared from different corners, surrounding Henry. I said come alone. Yet I know your friend Donna, or is parked 3 blocks east. I know Darren Pineda is at his office. I know you're wearing recording equipment. He smiled. We swept your house again this afternoon. Found the GPS trackers you placed on our vehicles. Found the cameras your FBI friend installed here earlier today. We've been watching you watch us, Mr. Logan. You're not as clever as you think. Henry's blood turned to ice. They'd known. Every step of his plan, they'd anticipated. Surprised, Chad circled him slowly. My father built this empire by staying 3 steps ahead. Did you really think some architect with a vendetta could outmaneuver us? Emily did. Emily died. Chad stopped directly in front of him. She was brilliant, I'll give her that. But brilliance without power is just noise. She threatened to expose us, so we eliminated the threat. Simple. You're confessing. Henry's voice was steady despite his fear. You're telling me you killed my wife. I'm not telling you anything that matters. Because in about 30 seconds, you're going to have an unfortunate accident. A grieving widower, unstable, paranoid, making wild accusations against prominent citizens. You broke into this warehouse and fell. Tragic. The police will find your body in the morning. Chad pulled out a gun, casual as checking his watch. Any last words? Henry looked at the weapon, at the men surrounding him, at what appeared to be his death. And he smiled. Yeah, you should never have threatened my son. What? The warehouse doors exploded inward. Police, actual police, not security contractors, poured through every entrance, weapons drawn, voices shouting commands. Chad spun, confusion and rage warring on his face as officers surrounded his men, disarming them with practiced efficiency. And through the chaos walked Robbie Davenport, detective with the state attorney's office, flashing his badge. Chad McCall Merritt, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, and about 15 other charges we're going to add once we're done with you. Robbie's grin was savage. You have the right to remain silent. Henry watched as they cuffed Chad, watched the realization dawn that he'd been played. But the best part, the part that made everything worth it, came when Robbie held up his phone, showing a video feed. The entire conversation had been live-streamed to the state attorney's office, where a half-dozen prosecutors and a judge had listened to Chad's confession. How? Chad demanded, staring at Henry with hatred. You were right about one thing, Henry said quietly. I'm not clever enough to outmaneuver you. But I didn't have to be. He gestured toward where Donna emerged from behind a container, accompanied by a woman Henry had never mentioned to anyone. FBI Special Agent Jesse Hoover, who'd been investigating the Merritt family's art trafficking for 3 years. Your mistake was assuming I'd fight this alone, Henry continued. That I was just a desperate father. But I'm also a businessman who knows when to bring in specialists. 2 weeks ago, Donna didn't just contact me. She contacted Agent Hoover. Gave her everything Emily had found. The FBI has been building a case against your family for years, but they needed proof. They needed someone inside to get a confession. You were FBI the whole time? Chad looked at Donna, betrayal mixing with his rage. No, Donna said. I'm exactly who I said I was, Emily's sister. But unlike Emily, I knew better than to fight powerful people without backup. She held up her own phone. The cameras Mickey installed? Those were decoys. The real recording equipment was FBI grade, installed last week when your people weren't looking. Every word you said, every threat you made, went straight to federal prosecutors. Henry added, and that bit about you sweeping my house and finding new bugs? We knew you'd do that, so we let you find the obvious ones. Made you think you were ahead, but the real surveillance was never on you. It was on your father, Agent Hoover finished. Ricardo Merritt, currently in federal custody, along with your legal team, your assistant, and everyone else involved in covering up Emily Douglas's murder. She nodded to Henry. Your wife's research led us to art trafficking, but Mr. Logan's cooperation gave us murder one. The DA is very pleased. Chad was dragged away, still protesting, still denying, but it didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession recorded from multiple angles, witnessed by federal agents and prosecutors. There would be no bought judges, no paid-off officials. This was federal now, and the Merritt's local power meant nothing. As the warehouse emptied, Henry stood alone in the space where he'd nearly died, feeling something he hadn't felt in 8 months. Relief. You did good, Henry. Robbie Davenport clasped his shoulder. Your wife would be proud. She'd probably say I took too many risks. Probably. But you got them. That's what matters. Robbie headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. We should have looked harder at her accident. Should have seen the signs. You couldn't have known. No, but we know now, and we're going to make sure everyone involved pays. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, washing everything in gold and pink. Donna waited by a police cruiser, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her. When she saw Henry, she straightened. We did it, she said. Emily's research, her death, it meant something. It always meant something. We just made sure the world knew. Henry pulled out his phone, checking for messages. Darren had texted, Corey's fine. We're at IHOP having victory pancakes. Get your ass over here. Henry smiled. Come on. Let's go get pancakes with my kid. Family tradition. Donna blinked. You mean, Emily's sister is Corey's family. Which makes you family. Unless you have somewhere else to be. She shook her head, eyes glistening. Pancakes sound perfect. They walked together toward Darren's car, and for the first time since Emily died, Henry felt like he could breathe. The merits were finished. Justice was coming, and his son was safe. Emily would have called it a good day's work. Henry called it closure. But as they drove away from the warehouse, he didn't see the figure watching from a distant rooftop. A woman in a dark coat, auburn hair catching the light, a silver locket visible at her throat. She watched the cars disappear, then pulled out a phone. They did well, she said softly. Better than expected. The voice on the other end was distorted. And Merritt. He'll talk eventually. When he does, we'll have the rest of them. And the husband? The woman's hand touched the locket, fingers tracing its familiar weight. Henry gets to live his life. He's earned that much. Let him be happy. And the child? Protected. Always. Her voice hardened. Anyone who tries to hurt Corey answers to me. That's not negotiable. Understood. What about Donna? She did her part. The FBI has enough to dismantle the trafficking network. The Merritts were just one piece. The woman turned away from the view, melting back into the shadows. We move on to the next target. Where? Prague. There's a banker who needs to answer for his family's crimes. The line went dead. The woman looked back one last time at the city where her husband and son slept safely, where her sister had avenged her. Emily Douglas, now operating under a dozen different identities, protected by a federal witness program, so classified only 4 people knew she was alive, allowed herself one moment of grief for the life she'd abandoned. Then she locked it away, compartmentalized like she'd been trained. She died to protect her family from the monsters she hunted. Someday, when the work was done, maybe she could go back. But not yet. Not while there were still monsters to stop. She walked into the dawn, a ghost with purpose, leaving behind everyone she loved to save them from the darkness. That was the price of justice. And Emily Douglas had always been willing to pay it. 6 months later, Henry Logan stood in his new office, a corner suite in the Morrison building, 3 floors below where the Merritt Foundation used to operate. His architecture firm had expanded, taken on new clients, thrived in the aftermath of the scandal that destroyed the Merritts. Corey was in school, happy, healing, seeing a therapist who specialized in childhood trauma, but doing better every day. Donna had moved into their spare room, temporarily, though temporary was starting to feel permanent, and Henry didn't mind. She was family. Corey needed family. They all did. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, then remembered the last unknown number had changed everything. Hello. Mr. Logan. A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. This is Agent Hoover. Do you have a moment? Of course. I'm calling to update you on the Merritt case. Ricardo and Chad both pled guilty yesterday. Life sentences, no parole. The art trafficking network has been dismantled. 17 arrests across 6 countries. Stolen works worth an estimated $200 million recovered and returned to families. Henry exhaled slowly. That's good news. It is. And Mr. Logan, I wanted you to know, your wife's research was instrumental. Without her work, we might never have cracked this. She saved countless people. She did. Henry's throat tightened. She was remarkable. She was. And I have one more thing to tell you. Agent Hoover paused. A message, actually. From someone who can't contact you directly, but wanted you to know. She's proud of you. And she loves you both very much. The line went dead. Henry stood frozen, phone clutched in his hand, processing those words. Someone who can't contact you directly. She's proud. She loves you both. It wasn't possible. But then again, nothing about the past 6 months had been possible. He looked at the photo on his desk. Emily, Corey, and himself on a beach vacation 2 years ago, all smiles and sunburn and happiness. He touched Emily's face through the glass. "I hope wherever you are," he whispered, "you know we're okay. And that we'll always love you." Across the city, in a safe house scheduled for decommissioning, Emily Douglas wiped tears from her eyes as she watched the surveillance feed from Henry's office. She'd promised herself she wouldn't torture herself with what she'd lost. But she needed to see them one last time before she left the country. Needed to know they were truly safe. They were. Henry had protected their son, avenged her death, and built a life from the ashes she'd left behind. He was stronger than she'd ever imagined, braver than anyone had a right to expect. He'd be fine without her, and that was what mattered. She powered down the feed, erasing all traces of her presence. By tomorrow, Emily Douglas would be on a plane to Berlin, assuming a new identity, hunting new monsters. The work never ended. But for the first time since she'd faked her death, since she'd drugged herself, crashed her car, been extracted by federal agents who'd staged the perfect accident, she felt something close to peace. Her family was safe. The merits were destroyed. Justice had been served. It wasn't the life she'd wanted, but it was the life she'd chosen. And Emily Douglas had never been one to regret her choices. She walked out of the safe house into the afternoon sun, leaving no trace she'd ever existed, carrying the weight of her sacrifice like armor. Some ghosts haunted, others protected, and Emily Douglas would protect her family until the day she actually died. That was a promise she intended to keep. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.